Good morning, everyone, and welcome back to my Southern Cottage Garden. Today, what we're going to be doing is some spring gardening. Plan with me. I have these 5 really easy steps that I take when I'm trying to prepare for the upcoming gardening season. So, those of you who have subscribed, thank you so very much for subscribing. It is Saturday morning. I do have my morning coffee. The house is still asleep. It's just me and Malcolm up right now. And so what we're going to be doing is just kind of getting our minds wrapped around the upcoming gardening season. So keeping in mind, you all, that this is a beginner's gardening channel. I've just been growing my front yard landscape or my front yard garden for one garden season. And I think I've done a really good job so far. The reason for the name of this channel, My Southern Cottage Garden, is because I'm really inspired by cottage gardens, very elegant, flowy, colorful mixture of perennials, shrubs, and flowers. I'm really captivated by that. Even here in the South, I'm in Zone 9B here in the southern part of Louisiana. So I'm just really inspired by that, and I'm hoping that I can kind of implement some of those cottage-esque plants and perennial shrubs into my own garden, even though it is very hot and humid here. So without further ado, the first step that I like to take when I'm trying to prepare for the season is to weed. Weed. Okay, so what are some of the benefits and why is weeding so important? Weeding is important because it helps to protect your plants from pests, aphids, and things of that nature. Weeds can kind of bring those things on a little bit quicker than if they were not there. Weeds compete with plants for the essentials: light, water, nutrition, space, and growth. And the most important thing, or one of the most important things, is it looks cleaner. Your yard, your garden looks more polished. It looks more well put together. It just looks much, much better if you have those weeds taken out. Okay, so the next step that you would want to take when preparing your garden for the spring season is mulch. Thinking about the mulch that you're going to use, or maybe changing up the one that you had from last year, or going ahead to use the same thing. What we use around here is the rubber mulch. I know I'm going to get beat up in the comments for using rubber mulch, but there are some advantages to using it. It provides insulation. It won't attract any insects or fungi or encourage any weeds to grow. It lasts forever, it stays in place, and it's really low maintenance. So those are a few reasons why we like to use rubber mulch around here. I just think that it really looks kind of calming to the eyes. I really like that it doesn't move around, when the wind blows. So I really like using the rubber mulch. Okay, so now that we have gotten the maintenance part out of the way by weeding and mulching and just kind of making sure that we have a nice, plain, manicured area, now we're going to start to look at more of the design aspect, looking at some of the plants that we want to bring into play, just kind of coming up with how we want the landscape to look. Okay, so going into step 3, how do you want your garden or your landscape to look? Keeping in mind, thinking about which plants you want that will carry you from season to season. So here in Southern Louisiana in Zone 9B, our growing season, our gardening season is really, really long. So I try to make sure that I select plants that are going to carry me through those seasons. So making sure that I select those plants that are tough and that are able to withstand our humidity. And one thing that I've kind of failed to mention in the beginning of the video is at the front of my house, where I'm doing all of this gardening and landscaping and this cottage style landscape, well, it receives full sun. So that's another very important thing, making sure that I select those plants that are able to really withstand that heat pretty much all day. So one thing that I like to do is I like to go on Pinterest to kind of look for different ideas, and keeping in mind that I am a beginner gardener and I've just been doing this for one gardening season. So going on to Pinterest and thinking about the colors that I want to use. Now, the colors that I used last year were pink, green, maybe a bit of white. So just kind of sticking with that same theme or those same colors and just adding, I'm thinking I'm going to add in a bit of purple and maybe a little bit of blue and white. Not sure how that's going to look, but when I go on Pinterest, I just type in cottage garden, pink, purple, and white, because the foliage is already green. And so from there, I get a really, really nice set of images that are going to kind of help me with narrowing down. I love to look at the ones that have stone, because I do have that layering in or curvature of stone as well. So, oh, these are really pretty, y'all. I'm gonna try to maybe take a screenshot of this so that I can add it to the video. But really, really beautiful images pop up. Now, keeping in mind that I have to make sure that the plants that I select are able to withstand that heat. A lot of the cottage-esque plants that that I've researched, that I've looked up, they're not able to withstand the heat. But if I can get plants that thrive in my zone that are able to withstand the heat but have the same color, that's the key. Color, color, color. Looking at those colors when I'm making my plant selections. The foliage, or the colors rather, that I have in the garden right now, again, are those pinks and greens. Again, I do want to implement some white, some purple, a little bit of blue. If I can. And I'm just going to be selecting perennials because I do want those plants to be able to come back every year. So the next thing that we're going to take a look at as far as this step 3 and how do you want the garden to look, we want to make sure that we take a look at what worked last year. What I'm doing is I'm kind of categorizing or organizing my plants that are in my landscape, shrubs, perennials, annuals. So the shrubs that really are staples for me in my garden are the loropetalum. I find that it's really beautiful purple foliage. Mine can go from purple. The purple foliage is the new foliage that forms on the plant, but it's going to kind of naturalize into green, and then also give some spring color with the fringe flowers that appear on it. And I'll pop an image of it in the video. The next one that I really, really love, one of my favorite shrubs, is going to be the sunshine ligustrum. This plant, I'm telling you all, it can withstand anything. It was able to withstand hurricane winds that we had, flooding. It really, really is a tough cookie when it comes to this type of area that I live in the South. Very vibrant, bright green foliage, more of going towards the lighter side of green, like a more lime color. I find that color really pops. It goes really, really well with the pinks that I use in the garden. It's able to thrive in my zone. Once it's established, it really can be drought tolerant. I had two. I started off with two sunshine ligustrums in the larger bed that I have in the front, and then I was able to, once I saw how well it worked, I picked up another one for closer towards the window in that same area, and then I picked up another one kind of towards October. So I found that this plant, Sunshine Ligustrum, like even though I was planting it later in the gardening season, it still thrived. Like started off really small, now all of them are kind of well established. So a really, really good shrub to have if you're in the in zones, I would say maybe 7 to 10. The Sunshine Ligustrum is really, really good. Okay. So some perennials that I found that I was only able to utilize in the spring, early spring, mid-spring, towards late spring, they started to die out, but I want to incorporate them again. My agapanthus, African daisies, and verbena. So those are more going to be more of your cooler weathered perennials. Once it really starts to get hot, like maybe for us in like July, they're totally going to be died out here in the South. So those are going to be your spring perennials, agapanthus, African daisies, and verbenas. The reason I want to incorporate them again is because they were really the showstoppers in early spring, and they really gave me that cottage-esque feel that I would like to have here in my garden. Okay, now on to the perennials. Those are going to be your plants that come back every year for you. So some of those that really worked well in my garden this past or last year were the Angelonia. I did have some pink Angelonia. They were able to work from spring all the way up to fall. And I even had my husband cut them back all the way back at one point, and they just kept reflushing out new blooms. So your Angelonia, I would use that as kind of a staple if you want to see that constant color throughout the year. The next one is going to be the Lantana. Lantana, I started to incorporate the lantanas more towards the latter part of the spring because they really, really like that heat. Lantana is going to be another good perennial to have in the garden. They did really well for me. They come in really in a lot of good different colors. So lantana is going to be another one that I'll kind of repeat again this year. My dianthus, I kind of have a love-hate relationship with them because when they're in bloom, they look really, really nice. But I was noticing that it took a longer time for them to reflush. So not lantanas, but my dianthus, I am going to use them, but I'm not going to make them like the center of the garden. So maybe just a few here and there. Pentas. Pentas are so, so pretty. And I had the light pink pentas last year, and they really did well throughout the gardening season. They just like to stay watered. They like to have water all of the time. So just kind of make sure if you implement or incorporate pentas into your landscape, make sure that they get that consistent water and that consistent sunlight. So they did really well, just maybe just as well as the Angelonias did, but I think I purchased the pentas at a latter part of the springtime. The Gumfrina are going to be those really hot pink dotted uh, perennials that I kind of had towards the front of the border. They did really, really well. I would say from summer when I first purchased them all the way to, I would say, winter. They did really, really good. So Gumfrina is another plant that I want to implement again as well. Going into your annuals, coleus. Coleus, coleus, coleus. Coleus is going to be one of Coleus is going to be one of those plants or one of those annuals that's more so for its foliage. They flower, but I don't think a lot of people like the flowers that form on them. So coleus come in different colors. The next thing that we want to get into is our step 4, thinking about our budget. Do we have a budget for purchasing all of these plants? I know that should have been the first thing. But if you're like me and you just love gardening and it's a passion that you have, the budget can kind of go out of the window sometimes. But at least we have it on the list, right? So thinking about your budget and thinking about the purchases that you will need to make in order to sustain your garden, at least for one season. Thinking about the fertilizer that you want to use. I use Proven Winners fertilizer. I use the one that lasts for 3 months, and I also use Plant Tone. Plant Tone, I just kind of use that on everything: shrubs, perennials, annuals. Though that's a really good fertilizer that I use. And again, like I said, I also use the Proven Winners, the 3-month granular fertilizer. For the annuals, I also use a liquid fertilizer. So I just kind of fertilize throughout the gardening season. Some other purchases that you would need to think about making, if you need any tools, if you need new gloves, like I need new gloves. I misplace them all the time. So I'm thinking about getting 2 pair of new gloves. Your tools, all of that is going to be important. Make a list for yourself. I usually just shop on Amazon for a lot of that stuff because I can get it quickly and I can just kind of get everything at the same time without having to go out and run to the store. So thinking about your budget, thinking about your supplies that you will have to purchase, all of that is going to be very important. Another thing is when you're thinking about adding those new plants into your garden, where are you going to purchase them from? Do you purchase them online? Do you go to some of our box stores? Do you go to your local nurseries? So that's going to be another important thing. I find that depending on the type of plant that I want, I have to start looking early, especially for your agapanthus. Remember I said that's one of the early spring perennials that I want to put back into my garden. I had I had maybe 3 of them, but I lost 2 of them in trying to transition. So I still have the one that's in the garden, but I want to get maybe 2 more. And they come in different sizes as well. The really nice, tall ones, kind of more mature ones, they sell out really fast. So the agapanthus, that's one thing that I'm going to have to be on the lookout for very early in the spring season. So thinking about where you're going to get those plants from and, how quickly they're going to come to you. That's another thing that you need to think about. And the 5th thing, the last thing, most of all, have fun. Having fun is one of the most important things when you're trying to plan and prepare for your upcoming gardening season. My daughter and I actually have an activity planned for today where we're going to kind of sketch out what we want our garden spaces to look like. So this year she's going to be implementing her own little garden in one of the areas that we have, maybe at the back of the house or the side of the house. So that's something new that we're going to start this year. So she's going to be able to see her own plants thrive and flourish and grow throughout the different seasons. So that's going to be something fun, something new that we're implementing this year. So again, I'll go over those 5 tips that I gave you. Step 2, using mulch. Again, around here we use rubber mulch. Step 3, thinking about the appearance of your garden, what you want it to look like. Step 4, purchasing your supplies and new plants that you want to incorporate into your landscape. And step 5, having fun. Okay. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope that you'll consider subscribing to our channel and sticking around for all of the fun activities, planning, runs to the store, things like that, opening up packages, all of that that we have for this upcoming gardening season. So thank you for watching. Bye-bye. I'll see you in the next one.